Episode 6. We're going to go on to the location and the setting of the first scene. We kind of went over it in the very first episode, and I'm going to go over it in way more detail in this one. There is a lot to add and go into. This is just going to be little manageable chunks and bites so that I'm not overwhelmed and so that you're not overwhelmed. So we actually have good audio and video. It all sounds good. So we could finally get back on track with making this short film that I want to create. When I was doing all the research and trying to make this podcast as good as I can make it, I ended up learning a lot of stuff that I actually used for the film itself. And one of the biggest things I learned was lighting. I never realized how much actually goes into lighting. I feel like a complete idiot for not realizing how important it is to make your shots look good on camera. But now I look at some of my scenes completely differently, especially when it comes to how I want to light them. So I guess I should set the scene again. I think I've only talked about the story once, back in the first episode. Let's go over the opening of the film again. The main character, the one I've only ever called the Mask Maker, is in fact a mask maker. He's living in ancient Japan, probably sometime around the 1500s, and he's slowly losing his mind because of some outside force. Something is influencing him, and eventually that influence is going to convince him to create an object that is maybe not pure evil, but pretty damn close. I also think I want him to always wear a Tengu mask. So the first few scenes, originally I wanted them to take place in a small historical Japanese village, maybe somewhere with an actual historical connection to something interesting. Maybe a master sword maker lived there, and I actually remember hearing about a legend involving a cursed sword maker, where these swords end up being used in various evil deeds or killing their owners or something along those lines. So naturally, I went down the rabbit hole. The sword maker was Muramasa, and there's a legend that once a Muramasa blade is drawn, it has to draw blood before it can be returned to its scabbard, even to the point of forcing its wielder to wound themselves or do the worst thing you can do to yourself. Which is obviously a pretty awesome piece of folklore to stumble across when you're trying to make a movie like this. So I started looking around for abandoned, cursed, or supposedly haunted villages in Japan, and I started thinking that I could use some of that historical drama to fuel part of the story. Now, the problem is narrowing it down to the right one, because there are a lot. And I think I want somewhere where it can snow, very forested, maybe mountainous, something that feels isolated. So now I have to go through all these creepy, supposedly cursed villages and figure out which one I'm going to put my traumatized main character in. The mask maker lives in a small hut out in the woods. He's basically a hermit. A few years earlier, he went through some unnamed trauma that cost him his family. And now he's alone and he makes masks. Wooden toys, or other wooden items for the villagers, and in exchange, they give him food and materials. That's basically his life. Until something else enters it. The opening scene starts with overhead shots of the forest, trails, roads, slowly moving through the landscape, and eventually, we start moving toward a little hut sitting in a clearing, right where one of the trails ends. It's a little bit after dusk, just barely night, and there's a fire raging in a fire pit outside the hut. And off to the side, the mask maker is sitting at his work table, carving a mask. And after everything I've learned about lighting, I think the fire is going to be one of the most important parts of this scene. So I want the fire to be the main key light, that warm yellow-orange light, hitting him while everything else around him is falling into darkness. Maybe have some kind of hair light or rim light, to separate him from the background. Because there's more forest just outside the fire's light, and that's where the evil entity is contacting him from. The voices, the whispers he hears, are coming from that side of the fire. At first, he just hears something. Then maybe a whisper. He looks towards the trees, and eventually, he sees eyes. They're illuminated by the fire. One set of eyes, and then another opens, and then another, and then more. Until all these eyes are staring back at him from the darkness of the forest. And I think that's where the scene ends. the maker sitting at his table outside of his little hut, staring into the forest, with his Tengu mask just sitting on his face, with its eyes staring empty into the darkness. I think I have a few options in Central Texas where this would actually work. I might have to ask you a few favors to get some of the shots that I want, but honestly, it doesn't seem impossible. So I think I'm going to start scouting some locations and see if I can find something that matches what's in my head. There's a road that I take to get to the main city where I live, and it's basically perfect for the mask maker to use as a trail to take him to the main village. The biggest problem with that location is going to be finding the right time of day, because the lighting is either going to make or break those shots. So either going to be way overexposed, way underexposed, or just right. I don't really have much control over the lighting on a public road that's covered in trees, but it's beautiful. Probably have to build the side of his hut. I might make it in small pieces here pretty soon. For this particular scene, I don't think I need a whole bunch of props, but I'll definitely need that side of the hut, the mask that he's carving, his carving tools. There's the mask he's carving there. A fire pit that looks period correct, and depending on the location, I might put in some like little eye reflectors to hide out in the woods. And I'll also need a finished mask that the mask maker actually wears, and I'll have to sew a period costume correct for him. I'm thinking somewhere along the lines of a short kimono top, big baggy pants tied around the ankles, and those little traditional split-toe shoes, and probably his sleeves tied up while he's working. And the Tengu mask that I've already made is just going to be a placeholder for now, and then for the actual hero mask that I'm going to make for the film. I've actually already tried making a kimono, kind of. I made it out of an old giant tablecloth we had, and it's definitely not my best work. It was actually the first sewing project that I decided to take on. One of the reasons this whole project took off is that was the first thing I realized. I had no idea what I was doing or how to do it or what I needed to do in order to do it. But eventually I wanted the mask maker to dress completely differently anyway. So this kimono is just really for the experience, and maybe I'll use it for a background character. But the good news is, now I have a prototype. I've got a prototype for the costume, one for the mask. I've got a bunch of notes on what I want to change for all of it, what worked, what didn't, what I want to do differently. So when I make the actual costume and the actual mask, I'll have a much better idea of what I'm doing. Maybe I'll have to make 5 or 6 of them, but I finally will get them the way I want to, and that's kind of how this whole thing is going. I'm learning as I go. I have a friend who owns some land pretty close to me. There's a forest, there's a river, there's a lot of empty country, and honestly, I feel like that might be the best place to set up the mask maker's little shack. But I have a few other options too, so I have to go out and actually have a look at them. I think this opening is going to do a lot. It's going to set the tone for the overall film, especially because it's going to be such a huge contrast to the other main character in the story, the crazy, drug-fueled biker. He's from the present day, and he eventually ends up using the evil object that the mask maker is going to create. But that's a completely different scene, different setting, different location, and different vibe. So that's going to make the contrast between the two characters hopefully even more interesting. For the mask maker, I'm looking for something really green, forested, very rural, as much fun as that word is. Something that feels isolated, somewhere that the little shack and the fire pit actually feels like they belong there. I think I'm actually going to have to build some painted backgrounds, maybe build some fruit carts, some open air market stalls, things like that. For the trip into the village, he's going to need to pass all sorts of things that actually make it feel like it's a lived-in place. I'm actually really excited about building all of that. I've never done anything like that before, but I have some forest perspective ideas in my head that I think are going to turn out really cool, and if I can get them to look right, they're going to be pretty awesome. That's the whole experiment with this movie, is working with minimal to no budget and basically no experience, which sometimes creates amazing art. Sometimes it just makes junk that looks like junk and reads like junk. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully someone will want to watch it when I'm done. So I'm going to do everything that I can to make the best film I possibly can, and that's going to be me relying heavily on other people's experiences. Thankfully, there's a ton of people out there that are already documenting what they've learned, what they're learning, and I'm going to borrow or learn as much as I possibly can from them. And hopefully, I can use all of that to make this thing look as good as possible. The next episode will probably be all about creating props for this first scene. And maybe I'll go over some of the locations that I found too. If I get the chance to drive around and figure that out, I will definitely post that here if I get to it before the next one. Hopefully there's plenty of intrigue and interest in this one. We're only 11 minutes in, and that is all that I really wanted to say as far as the locations go. I'm really excited, really, in all honesty, with how the lighting turned out. I didn't realize that it was going to be looking this good. I also have a light that's going to be somewhere right where my palm is, but I haven't set it up yet. I wanted to get this done and recorded. I actually recorded this 3 times already, and every time it was awful. The last one I looked like I got beat up for some reason. I'm not sure what happened, but it was terrible. So hopefully this one reads a lot better, comes across a lot better, and I'm really just trying to make sure that we have enough content to put into a full video. I don't want to set up no half-contented, I wouldn't want to set up a video with only half the content that it needs. I think one of the most important things from here is going to be working on the side of the house. I've been watching a few different survival men build a hut or a shack out of pallet wood, which I have ample access to. And I think that they're going to, basically I'm going to use what they use for the outside of their house, just build a frame for that, make that, weather it a little bit, which luckily the pallet wood is already going to look a little weathered, and then maybe install like a part of a window just to give it the lived-in shack feel, and then I'm probably going to build a false wall that you can see through the window that's going to make it look like it has depth and all sorts of other stuff going on the other side that isn't actually going to exist. That's going to be fun. It makes me feel like building a magician's box or a magician's tools whenever you work on film props, because it's all about the audience's perspective and them believing what they see, even though what in reality is something entirely different. Cheating the visual system in order to make it look a certain way. I think that stuff is amazing. So I can't wait to actually get to those parts, which hopefully will be somewhat of the next episode. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to accomplish necessarily, because I'm trying to put these out every couple of days. So hopefully it'll be something. Maybe it'll just be more of an idea, or more materials gathered together, or more of a plan of what I'm going to do. It's going to be interesting to see how all of this grows. I'm already doing more for it than I was originally planning in the first place. I kind of had like an idea of using the side of my shed and using my actual fire pit, and that would look just awful. It would look like a home movie. We're trying to get past that. We're trying to come above that. Maybe not go completely professional. I don't have the budget for completely professional, but I think I can make it look student film good. We're looking at Clerks. Somewhere in that area. Although every time I think about Obsession, it makes me irritated as hell, because that dude is just a dude on YouTube and he turned that amazingness out. I've been watching all of the behind the scenes and everything for that, because they also had no budget, and it turned out really good. So I think that the potential's there. The money is not. So we will see where it goes from here. And I am hopefully going to be investing in a decent tripod soon, so that's going to help me out a lot in the prop shots. I want the prop, I want to show parts of me building the prop. I understand this is all for a podcast, but maybe the thwacking of the hammer will be therapeutic to some of you. Thwacking. What a fun sound. All right. Well, I think I have finally gotten around to the, we're pretty close to the time I'm trying to get to. Once again, I think maybe with the prop stuff, I can get my friend Tom to come on here. Maybe it's really just a matter of getting us together. I might even try the whole internet interview Zoom recording thing. I don't know. He has a podcast, so that means he has a lot of a setup on his end, but we're only an hour away. There's no reason why we can't get together. But I think that's as far as we're going to take this one today. Hopefully. Oh, I also, all of the shots of the mask maker that I put up here today were from a game called Ghost of Tsushima, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing. And I basically just put the main character in clothes that were similar to what I want the guy to look like, but then put him in scenes that were similar to what I was talking about, just as a visual reference for this. I refuse to use any AI or anything like that, so that's the best way for me to do it quickly. I can draw, I could put some art up, but this is just a way faster way to do it. These are some of the visual ideas. Hopefully you enjoy it. We'll see you on the next one. Y'all have fun. All right.